Hey guys, it's Yahtzee. I am making a video on writer's block because in the last couple of days I've gotten a few questions about writer's block, which is more than I usually get because the usual number that I get is 0. And it just felt like a good time to make a video. I've been thinking about doing videos for a while, and I wanted to give you guys some writing tips and that kind of thing. And yeah, so the last couple of days I've gotten a lot of people coming to me and asking me what I do when I have writer's block. And the answer is I don't believe in writer's block. I don't think it's a real thing. And I know that maybe sounds really strange coming from a writer who writes, because it's not a normal thing for people to be like, oh yeah, writer's block. No, that's a myth. But here's why I think that, and why I actually think it's counterintuitive and harmful to writers to think of writer's block as a thing that exists. So writer's block, as we define it, is generally when you get stuck, right? It's when you're trying to write and nothing's happening, right? Well, here's the thing. That's a symptom. That's not a problem. Not being able to write isn't something that, just mysteriously happens to you. Like you wake up one morning and all of a sudden it's just gone, There's reasons for why you've gotten stuck. And I think when we say writer's block, like if I'm thinking about it and I'm like, oh man, I'm so stuck. And instead of trying to figure out why I'm stuck, I just think to myself, man, I've got writer's block. It's kind of an excuse to give up, right? In a lot of ways. And I know that some people aren't doing it that way, but I do know that a lot of people also do fall into that trap of like, oh, I must just have writer's block. I guess I can't write. And that's not true. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes the best option is to take a break. But what I found is that usually my writer's block is caused by something else. And so if I define it as writer's block, instead of figuring out what the actual problem is, I stop working, or I wallow, or I just try to figure out ways to force myself to write without addressing the root problem and without actually fixing what's wrong. And that can be really damaging. That can make you feel really frustrated and gross and make you feel like writing is a chore. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to just force yourself to keep going if you don't have to. Sometimes you will have to, but you don't want to do that if you don't have to. Like, then you're just making everything harder for yourself. So here are the top 3 reasons that I think people, mostly myself, because that's the perspective that I have, get writer's block. Number 1, you don't know what happens next. This happens to me all the time. I write up to the point that I've thought to. And remember, writing is just writing down your thoughts. So if you haven't thought your thoughts yet, you can't write them down. There's nothing there yet it's still loading. It's loading in your brain, and there's nothing to go on the paper, and that's not going to be helpful to you. So sometimes you're going to get to a point where you don't know what happens next. You haven't thought about it. And sometimes that means that you have to stop and brainstorm, right? Or you need to stop and go do something else for a while and sort of like let your brain recharge. There's a lot of different things you can do, but that's number 1, the number 1 reason that I think people get writer's block. Number 2, you're having a bad day. This happens to everyone. I just want to point out that like accountants don't get accountant's block. They just tell everybody they're having a shit day. And I feel like a lot of times we as writers don't allow ourselves to have bad days, because isn't the whole point supposed to be that like, oh yeah, you just put an idea in and a book falls out your mouth? No! So writers aren't unicorns. That's not going to work for you. It takes a lot of hard work. It's exhausting. And sometimes you're going to have a bad day. Sometimes you're not going to be in the mood, or you're going to, I don't know, you got a bad night of sleep. You're coming down with a cold. Like anything can go wrong. Sometimes you just wake up on the wrong side of the bed, And I think a lot of times we're not gentle with ourselves. We're not in a place we try to force ourselves to write instead of going, maybe I need to like go make myself some tea and just chill for a little while and give myself a break and sort of try to like reorganize my thoughts and figure out where I am as a person, because I'm a person first and a writer second. And I don't think we give ourselves that leeway, and it's really damaging sometimes to your health to try to force yourself to write. So that's number 2. You're just having a bad day, right? Number 3 is you just don't want to write. Man, I've had such bad writer's block sometimes when I knew that my friends were out doing stuff that I was totally invited to, but decided not to go to because I had to write. And that can happen. I mean, you have something else to do. One of the big things that happens to me is like if I know I have laundry to do, or if I know I have chores to do, then I have trouble focusing because I'm trying to hold all of that other stuff in my brain at the same time. And so that can be really difficult. But that's a thing. Sometimes you just don't want to write. Sometimes you're like, man, I wish I was doing something else. And this is the one that I would say, if like this is your problem, if your problem is that like your friends are at the theme park and you wish you were there, that is one of the times where maybe you just need to tough it out. Like maybe you're just kind of salty that you didn't get to go on the trip or whatever because you decided to be responsible and stay home and write. But you made that choice, and now you have to sort of like deal with that choice and like be a mature adult and just write. So that'll be the one time I'd say maybe you do just need to like sit down and force yourself to write. Or it's not going to get done. Because writing is hard, and it's not fun all the time, and if we're sitting down and expecting it to be fun all the time and constantly have inspiration and know what's supposed to happen in our story and just, like, it flows like a river and, like, all that kind of stuff, then you're not gonna do well. That's not helpful to you or anybody else, because it's hard, and it's dirty, and sometimes it doesn't go well. And sometimes it's super frustrating, and everybody has to do like 4,000 bajillion drafts. And there's no way to get around that. So if you think maybe you just don't want to write, like if you've sort of ruled everything else out and you've realized that you just don't want to write, then I would suggest maybe just buckling down and trying to write something. But otherwise, like maybe take a break. And sometimes you'll realize you just don't want to write because you're hungry. This goes back to like number 2, which is like you're having a bad day. Like your needs aren't being met. And if you realize you just don't want to write because your needs aren't being met, then fine. Leave. Go do something else because you're not going to be able to write until you feel like you're in a good place. And maybe when you come back, it'll still be hard and it'll still be frustrating, but you'll be prepared to take that on. Right? Which is a lot of a different place than coming in half-starved and asleep and trying to do something challenging. Like the best thing you can do is prepare yourself for the challenge. So those are the 3 things that I think cause sort of like the blockage and cause people to feel stuck and frustrated in their writing. But I wouldn't call these things writer's block, just because, again, that puts them all under one header of the same thing, and I think that's damaging. I think that makes you look at the wrong thing. Like you're focusing on the writer's block instead of focusing on the problem that you're having. If you focus on the problem you're having, you're going to solve it a lot faster than if you just focus on the fact that you're stuck. So I never use the term writer's block. I don't like using it. But now that I've explained that, here are some things that I do to get myself unstuck. Obviously, step number 1, figure out why I'm stuck. For me, the most common things are I'm distracted, hungry, I have other things to do, or I'm mad at my writing because it's not doing what I want. So those are like the most common reasons for me that I find I'm stuck in like, oh, and that I don't know what happens next. That kind of gets grandfathered in under like the mad one, because I feel like usually when I'm frustrated, it's because I'm trying to write and I have no idea what's coming next. So in terms of like distractions, this is sort of just a wiggle room thing. Like you kind of just need to figure out like where you write best. For me, I write best in the dark, in the middle of the night, and only in the middle of the night because it's the only time that it's really dark, I think. But my hyperfocus works really well when I can get a really bright computer screen in front of me and everything else is super dark, because then it's less likely that I'm going to turn away. When you see movement, you automatically turn to look at it, and I have like a really scattered brain. So if like a car goes by on the street, I look at it and I'm out. I'm not in my writing anymore. So I really like to write like in complete darkness with headphones on, because then I don't get distracted at all. And that's kind of like an all the time thing. If I'm having a bad day, a lot of times I just won't write. Or I'll do things that I know will make me feel better. So if I know that I'm frustrated because like the household chores aren't done, cleaning makes me feel a lot better a lot of the time. just like doing something that I like reading a good book that I like. There's a couple books on my bookshelf that I'll just pick up, like Cathedral or Bloodchild or like The We Free Men, I mean, are a couple examples of books that I'll just pick up and like start reading if I just feel like my brain is totally shut off. That's the other thing. Sometimes you just need to warm up. Like your brain is just, you're just not thinking anything because you just haven't been thinking anything. And so sometimes I do have to warm up. So I'll read something to sort of get the gears turning, or I'll just scribble. I'll start scribbling like a list to myself. Like what needs to happen in the story? What do I need to talk about? And that gets me thinking about the story and what needs to happen. And that also helps you solve the problem of when you don't know what happens next, right? Actually taking the time to brainstorm and sit down and be like, okay, what needs to happen? And sometimes the question isn't even what needs to happen. The question is, what could happen? I've had a lot of stories where the only reason I continued writing them was because I was like, there's a door over there. I put it there and I don't know why. Someone should come through the door. And then someone comes through the door and then it's like magnificent. And like that wasn't planned at all. I have no idea why it happened. But it was just something that was there that I could use and I just did and then it worked out. Trust yourself with stuff like that. Sometimes you're just going to be like, well, and then the window breaks. And that works sometimes. Just use whatever is available to you. Writing is a lot of planning, and it's also a lot of improv. To do that kind of thing too. Think about where your characters are and the possibilities. I mean, are they in a building with electric lights? Could the electricity go out? I mean, someone shows up that they weren't expecting. This is going to take your writing in interesting ways. But especially if you're working on a first draft, that's fine. Most of your writing isn't going to survive the first draft anyway. Don't sweat it if you have to go out and do something else instead of writing, like brainstorming or rewriting something. Or that's the other thing. Sometimes I get stuck because I know something before is wrong. I know that I'm going to go back and change something, but because I don't know what it looks like yet, because I haven't gone back and changed it, I don't know what should come next because I feel like I don't have the foundation that I need. And so in that case, I'll go back. And a lot of people say, oh no, I never go back when I'm writing a first draft. But if that's what's going to help you, do it. Like when you're in that place where you're stuck, you're basically in triage mode. Like you're just trying to salvage it. So if you maybe need to break some rules and go back or do something silly or ridiculous to get yourself out of your stuck place and get your brain sort of moving again, that's fine. There's a lot of stuff that we have to do when we're writing that's not writing. And it's worth your time. Okay, that's what I'm going to tell you. That's the biggest thing I'm going to tell you, is figuring out what the problem is and fixing it is worth your time. Because sitting there and staring at your screen and not getting anything done is not worth your time. And the only thing that's going to solve that for you is figuring out what the problem is and fixing it. So I know it feels counterintuitive to go make like tea or sit here and not write anything and maybe walk away, take a walk, go do something fun, read a book. I know that sounds like you're not getting anything done, but if it's what you need to do in order to move forward, it is worth your time. And that's me, a person with a college degree in creative writing, telling you that. So like if anybody tries to fight you on that one, just tell them that I said so and send them here and I'll give them a sticker or something. I don't know. Stickers make people feel better, right? But yeah. So the next time you're thinking that you have writer's block, try this instead. Think to yourself, why am I stuck? Am I frustrated with what I'm writing? Am I frustrated with something in my life? Am I distracted? Right? Do I feel good today? Do I feel okay? Is my brain on? And I'm just going to mention that some of us also have like executive function problems, and that sometimes it will be really hard to sit down and just start working. And in the case of that, what works for me is those warm-ups. Getting my brain sort of in gear before I sit down and start writing takes the pressure off a lot, because I'm not thinking like, oh, I'm going to write now. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to like write a drabble or, you know, make a stupid poem or something else. And that sort of gets me into my groove before I put the pressure on and tell myself to write. So if you have problems with executive dysfunction, that is what I would suggest, is doing warm-ups, because that has helped me so much with mine. there's probably a lot of other things that you can do as well, but also recapping for yourself. So when you come back to your story, read like the last couple pages of what you wrote. And sometimes that's going to involve some editing, sometimes it's not. But just read what the last couple of pages of what you wrote. Maybe do it out loud. I think doing it out loud generally motivates me a little bit more, but I'm also like super used to reading things out loud. That might just be me. But yeah, that's basically all the tips and tricks I have for you guys for getting out of sort of a hard place when you're writing, or getting back into a good headspace for writing, whichever way you want to think about it. But all in all, I don't call it writer's block, and I try to focus on the problem and not the symptoms of the problem. And then I do whatever it takes to solve that problem, even if it means not writing right away. Because until I solve that problem, I'm not going to be able to write. All right, so I hope that helps. I hope this video made sense and that I didn't ramble too much. And I hope you guys have fun writing and doing your thing. All right, so I'll talk to you guys later.